The home has more and more devices, as we all know. And now with AI and generative AI, there's going to be a lot more traffic flowing across those networks. And we really need these networks to be super at what they're doing in its job. And so we look toward enterprise and non-consumer use cases and hopefully inject some of those technologies into Wi-Fi down the road to make our home networks just more robust.
Hey, this is Martha DeGrasse here again for Wi-Fi Alliance, and this is The Signal, our podcast where we give you the inside track on Wi-Fi. We want to deliver insight and perspective on the growing portfolio of Wi-Fi technologies that we see changing the connectivity landscape. These are meant to be smart conversations with industry leaders, and in this episode we are delighted to welcome James Chen back to the podcast. He's VP of Product and Technology at mediatek. James, welcome back to The Signal.
Hi, Martha. Glad to be back again. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about AI, which is something you were deeply involved with long before the rest of us started talking about generative AI. So give us a little bit of your history.
Well, absolutely. MediaTek's been doing AI for close to 15 years. We've applied AI to image processing to pretty up a picture. We've applied AI to video, to have better video contrast and resolution on a TV or on a phone. So we've had AI, what we call traditional AI, on the device, not in the cloud, for quite some time. But like you say, the news these days is AI on the edge, but more specifically, generative AI. So I think that's what's new these days.
Right, and that too is moving to the device, right?
Oh, absolutely. On-device generative AI, or Gen AI as we usually call it, is absolutely on the device today. In fact, it's going to be on more devices in the not-so-distant future.
And what role do your chipsets play?
We announced a device toward the end of last year. It was a smartphone SoC that was the first in the world to have on-device NPU that does generative AI, of course, traditional AI as well. And that broke all sorts of records because that device had 50 TOPS. 50 trillion operations. I can't even count that high. So that's what made the news, and that's what allowed all these smartphones to have generative AI on the device so quickly.
Okay, and what are some of the use cases that you're seeing so far for that?
Oh, I think the use cases really vary from, or can be fit into three categories. One is obviously entertainment. You've seen these demos and we showed it, where we have what's called real-time stable diffusion. You open up a chat prompt and you can type in the image you want generative AI to generate, and it will generate it in real time. So as you're typing, say you say, hey, I'm looking for lasagna, and it will just pop you a picture of lasagna in the background of a kitchen, and it populates the background of the kitchen as you type. And that can only be imagined with generative AI. The second category I would say is communication. We see people, for example, use generative AI on smartphones to summarize meeting minutes and automatically send out action items. It's like magic. But things like this, to be able to create avatars to help you communicate over the internet, and things to be able to chat with an avatar, I think these are all coming into play. And then last but not least, the third application actually is quite serious. Amidst all the cuteness of generative AI, we've seen people have on-device generative AI in smartphones for disabled. So for example, you can hold up your smartphone, it has a camera in front of you, you can scan your surroundings, and it will tell you in real time, hey, watch out. There's a big step on your left, watch out so you don't trip. And for the hearing impaired as well, because you have all these nice microphones on the smartphone. So we're seeing a lot of that, those three applications, but even more coming down the pike in the not so distant future.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. And what role will Wi-Fi play?
What we find Wi-Fi being important in generative AI is if generative AI, for example, finds its way into a home gateway, then the home gateway needs inputs into the APU to make generative AI goodness, then yes, Wi-Fi, this will impact Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi will now be even better in terms of low latency because we all want that feedback right away. You're going to have lots of data streaming into the device over Wi-Fi and has to coexist amongst all your other devices. So speed, latency, range, system capacity, the list goes on, but I think you know where this is going. We just need better Wi-Fi.
Okay, so generative AI can be important for Wi-Fi gateways. What's the relationship between traditional AI and Wi-Fi?
I'm glad you asked the question because it allows us to clarify. So yes, traditional AI versus generative AI, there's a big difference, of course. At MediaTek, we do use traditional AI to improve Wi-Fi. For example, I'll give you a couple examples, but at a high level, we use traditional AI to help improve the Wi-Fi protocol. We're not changing it because you can't change it. It's a communication standard from IEEE. But what we allow to do is allow it to converge faster and operate more seamlessly in our chip. So I'll give an example. So we all have heard about something called rate adaptation in Wi-Fi. So your access point will negotiate with the Wi-Fi and your client on what's the right speed to use, depending on your distance, your signal strength, and all that. And before AI, to lack a better term, it was mostly somewhat convoluted. I would say trial and error, the algorithms. But now with traditional AI, some of the machine learning that we can use will allow this algorithm to converge much faster. So what that means for the end consumer is that you'll operate at the peak optimum speeds without the access point and the client searching all over the place. So you're going to have better performance right out of the chute. So that's a very concrete example about how traditional AI can help optimize the Wi-Fi protocol stack.
Okay, and then going the other way, how does Wi-Fi help AI?
Well, I think Wi-Fi helps AI in terms of helping generative AI. So you can think about this: traditional AI helps Wi-Fi perform better, which in turn helps provide information on a speedier, lower latency basis for generative AI to do its goodness. So it's kind of like a loop, if you will. AI all helping itself with Wi-Fi in the middle.
So one of the use cases that we're hearing more about with AI is smart cities. Do you have anything that you're working on or any of your customers are working on that involves AI with smart cities?
Well, we do. We are. At MediaTek, we have a slightly different term for that because AI is going to be probably one day wherever you are, regardless if you're in the home, regardless if you're at work, out and about, or if you're in between, let's say in your car, going from one place to the other. So we have a different term at MediaTek. We call that smart AI life. So not so much smart city, but it's really about the individual and how AI can help the individual live a better life. Sorry for the cliche. So I think that's where we are going. If you look at the innovations in the last 10, 20, 30 years, it's all about how to make our everyday lives a little simpler, a little easier. Maybe not. Sometimes we hit the mark, sometimes we don't. But we try, right, in technology to make our lives more efficient. So I think AI is going to be the next frontier to help us live a smarter life. And then, I guess in theory, since everybody's living in a city, the city gets smart. But we want to focus on the smart life aspect first and see, hopefully, our AI make a big impact there.
So what would be a concrete example of that?
Oh, okay. So we have already talked about the smartphone and how generative AI can help and Wi-Fi's role in that. So let's think about when you're not out and about using your smartphone. Like me, I come home, I dock my phone, it's getting charged, and I go downstairs and spend some quality time with my teenage kids, and hopefully they'll be very receptive of that. So, and there, we don't interact with our phone. We interact with the TV, we interact with speakers, and we interact with different kinds of devices. So I think there, generative AI has a ways to go. So certainly you can imagine a day where generative AI is in your home gateway, and you can talk to it. For example, you can say, I'm about ready to leave, but I can't seem to find my car keys. And generative AI, if you have cameras in your home, since it knows and sees images and understands context, it can pinpoint locations, things you want to find, and pinpoint them in your home and say, yes, James, I think you've left it on the desk next to your computer that's still on. And so you go upstairs and get your keys. And so things like this make your life just a little bit better. And I would surmise that these little increments in life that, single, to use a baseball analogy, you hit a single or you hit a double, that really add up to make your life a little bit easier. And I think similarly, as you go in your car, AI is going to be there helping you navigate your journey and hopefully get you on time and arrive safely. And I'm glossing over a lot of details, but I think you get the gist.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you were on the podcast a couple years ago, you talked a lot about smart home devices, smart refrigerators, smart ovens, and it seems to me like generative AI could have a role to play there. You come in and the generative AI could be like, hey, do you want me to preheat your oven? Are you going to make dinner?
Yes,
I'm thinking that could be helpful.
I'm probably going to date myself, but it's all those cartoons I saw when I grew up, like the Jetsons, you arrive home and you talk to your house. Well, literally, you think about it, we have wireless speakers. Some of us have wireless speakers in our house, and we do talk to them. But now it's kind of limited. But imagine we're literally on the cusp of that with generative AI. And then Wi-Fi links all the devices together. Like I say, all the traffic's going to, regardless if it's image, audio, text, or video, it needs to be there all in real time for generative AI to have that immediate feedback and sense of immediacy to help you.
Yeah, it seems to me that gets back into the Wi-Fi and the other connectivity as well that we see in the home, the Zigbee and the Bluetooth. That's all got to be orchestrated. So there's a role for AI there, and then there's a role for AI in figuring out what the end user human needs all these devices to do, right?
Oh, I would agree. And I would say Bluetooth, Zigbee, and Wi-Fi, and even good old-fashioned gigabit Ethernet, now that we have Matter tying everything together, hopefully, finally, and they can all talk to each other and interoperate seamlessly. Now it's about how do we then optimize all these connections to deliver the data that we need in parallel to our everyday existence without us knowing it. And that's the way it should be. We should not be conscious and have to think hard about, I hope my sound bar is connected. Now, that's not what you should be worrying about. You should worry about bigger issues in your everyday life, but not about these connectivity issues.
Yeah. Okay, with Wi-Fi 7 coming, we're seeing more and more adoption of Wi-Fi in industrial settings, logistics, connected factories, things like that. And obviously there's a role for AI there, controlling machines. Are you seeing much demand for those types of applications?
Oh, absolutely. mediatek, we sell not just the Wi-Fi to industrial applications, but also the entire platform, like the CPU. So, for example, I'll give you one very concrete example. On the manufacturing line, you used to, and maybe still do to some limited extent, you have factory workers that are examining the output at various stages of the manufacturing process for any visual defects. Well, that is being replaced at a very fast rate by machines. Vision computing. Imagine having a camera looking at the output, producing a gizmo, and it does machine learning, it does visual computing, and can flag devices that are not up to par. And it sends that information real time throughout the factory. So that's the Wi-Fi backbone. So all these things are coming together. I think it's really for a greater purpose, which is, people talk about industrial 4.0, but really about just-in-time manufacturing, efficiency, supply chain, which is more and more important these days, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see more adoption of AI applications so far in enterprise or consumer settings?
Well, definitely the answer to that is consumers. Consumers are starting this, helped in large part by the smartphones I mentioned, but not to be outdone. The sequel is that obviously the enterprise applications are fast coming up. And at mediatek, we do work with some of the world's biggest enterprise companies. And they have a very unique take on generative AI. I probably can't say too much, but imagine machines being able to talk to each other, but not just through TCP/IP or whatever protocol they happen to use for those machines, but also somehow using generative AI. It begs the question, and that has lots of benefits. The machine can use generative AI to summarize if it has any problems, for example, to an IT administrator, without the IT administrator having to go through reams and reams of device logs. So there are some really interesting applications that the consumer side will never touch, but the enterprise and also industrial side will. And I think we're going to see that very, very quickly. And certainly we see it coming up very, very fast.
So what do you see as the biggest development in the next 12 months for AI?
Well, I think in the next 12 months or so for AI, we're going to see the proliferation of generative AI really much and spread much beyond smartphones. We think it's going to come to your home devices, the ones that I've mentioned, such as the home gateway. Certain compute devices is already there, so I won't touch upon that, but certain other display devices that you interact with, and certainly the car. The car definitely is a home for generative AI. And mediatek, we've announced certain initiatives on our automotive platform for the car, as your readers and followers probably know. So we think it will spread from the smartphone to the home to the car, and obviously make its way into enterprise. And it won't follow a linear path. Innovation rarely does. We'll have our ups and downs, but by and large, a trajectory will spread. It's kind of like throwing a stone into a pond and watching the ripples come out. Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of that. And the emphasis is also on device. I think Jensen really made a mark for generative AI on the cloud for the world. But now, really, we're seeing generative AI take off on device. So I think that's also very worthy news.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a lot more energy efficient than what's going on with all these giant servers chewing up all this bandwidth and all this energy.
Yeah, that's true. And also, there's a lot of privacy concerns. Some of the things you do on your phone and inside your home, you should do them on device. There's no need to pump that up to the cloud. We could do it, but doesn't mean we have to. And certainly with on-device generative AI, we don't need to.
Yeah, you've talked a couple times about the role of the gateway. Do you think we're going to see a big gateway refresh cycle?
I think the gateway certainly is ripe for some disruptive innovation. Now, I hate to use that word disruptive innovation, but I guess I don't have any other better phrase, so I'll use it. But the gateway today is somewhat of a passive device. It just gives you data and it transmits your data out. But it doesn't do anything to help you in your everyday life. And I think a lot of the operators and service providers are taking a very, very hard look at this. And certainly we're helping and giving them some ideas because we have solutions for all sorts of gateways, whether it be 5G gateways, fiber gateways, DSL gateways, Ethernet gateways, so on and so forth. So I really think probably in the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to see some pretty unique things that the gateway can do with AI and generative AI that we just don't see today by a long shot.
All right, we'll have to have you back on the podcast to talk about that.
Yes, we'll have to do another sequel. Yes,
that's right. Okay, before we let you go, what do you see as the most important role for Wi-Fi in the future of AI?
Well, I think Wi-Fi needs to further progress in how it adopts, I want to call, more enterprise-like features for the home. Right now, with Wi-Fi 7, we have something called MLO. That allows the access point not only to improve speed, but also really to switch bands from 2.4 to 5 to 6 or whatever. But it's focused, the access point of the gateway does that instead of the phone. And before Wi-Fi 7, the phone kind of took center stage. And that led to a very uneven user experience depending on the phone you have. So that's a good example. Going forward in 802.11bn, aka Wi-Fi 8, there are even more enhancements to this feature. And they're working on other things that help roaming inside the home as well. So this you need because the home has more and more devices, as we all know. And now with AI and generative AI, there's going to be a lot more traffic flowing across those networks. And we really need these networks to be super at what they're doing in its job. And so we look toward enterprise and non-consumer kind of use cases and hopefully inject some of those technologies into Wi-Fi down the road to make our home networks just more robust.
Absolutely. All right, James Chen, VP Product and Technology at mediatek. Thanks so much for coming back on the podcast. This has been great.
Thank you, Martha. Hope to see you soon.
Hope so. All right, that is our show. You can get the signal straight to your device through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course at the Wi-Fi Alliance. That's y-fi.org. I'm Martha DeGrasse, here for Wi-Fi Alliance. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next time on The Signal.